Hello, very good day to all. We are delighted to welcome you to this webinar. This is the first joint collaboration of the SEG Women's Network Committee and the Sustainability Committee. The Women's Network Committee is chaired by Elaine Matos, here with us today, and I chair the Sustainability Committee of the SEG, Society of Exploration Geophysicists. Today, we welcome, these kind of opportunities that empower us and enable us to do more at the SEG, benefiting our members. The purpose of today's event will be to share the many ways with which women are advancing sustainability in their respective organizations. And why is that? Well, yesterday, March the 8th, was International Women's Day, and we are so proud to bring you to you today what women are doing in their own realm about sustainability. It is our pleasure to welcome 3 stars in this sustainability world, and they represent very important organizations that advance sustainability in our energy world. We have Ulrike Schopp from IPICA, Nikki Martin from Energio Alliance, and Johanna Dunlop from IOGP and SPE Gaia. With this, I would like to pass over to Elaine to introduce herself. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariangela, and welcome everybody to our panel today. As Mariangela said, we are very excited to be here. It's a pleasure to be around this a brilliant woman that we're going to be discussing sustainability. So as Mariangela said, my name is Elaine Matos. I'm the chair of the SEG Women's Network Committee. And just so you can have a little bit information on my background, I have over 20 years of experience in the oil and gas, majority of it with Schlumberger. But in the past 3 years, I've joined Fairfield Geotechnologies, where I had their geoscience and marketing departments. I have had a very kind of broad experience in the oil and gas field. I started my career as a seismic engineer working on board the vessels, seismic vessels worldwide. And then early on in my career, I moved into managerial positions. I've worked all around the world, mainly in a few countries that I can mention here, the US, I work in Mexico, Trinidad and Tobago, UK, and in Brazil. I'm Brazilian. And I also have had several types of positions, from technical, managerial positions, and also involved in marketing later in my career. So that's a little bit of myself. Having worked in several countries, I learned how to appreciate the diversity, the benefits that diversity brings to the discussion, not only diversity in terms of gender, but also cultural diversity, different opinions, and I think that's very relevant. And with that, what I would like to do is I would like to introduce our first panelist, Johanna Dunlop. Johanna Dunlop, as Maria mentioned, she's here representing the SPE and Gaia. She was appointed Membership Engagement Manager at International Association of Oil and Gas Producers. Dunlop joined the oil and gas industry in 1992 as a risk manager for several of the Schlumberger business. Over the last 20 years, she held many management positions, including Executive Director of the Schlumberger Foundation and Global Director of Sustainability Integration. In 2017, she created her consultancy, Blue Walrus Sustainability Strategies. Dunlop served on the SPE board as the Technical Director of SPE's Health, Safety, Environment, and Sustainability discipline from 2017 to 2020. During her tenure, she founded the Safety Leadership Academy and the Gaia Sustainability Program. So thank you, Joanna, for joining our panel. And with that, I will pass it on to Mary Angela.
Many thanks, Elaine. And yes, we have a variety of panelists that indeed represent the diversity Elaine was talking to us about, and we are delighted to have them. At my end, I started my career as a geophysicist in Venezuela. I was the first seismic supervisor in the female supervisor in the jungle, that is. And I did a variety of roles that include reservoir manager and asset manager of 3 oil fields. Then I moved out to Halliburton to be regional manager. And then I moved out to Kuwait, to the Middle East. I was the first female operations manager of Halliburton for the Northern Arabic Gulf. And then I worked in a Kuwait oil company as an advisor for the leadership and deputy CEOs there. I am glad to share with you that I am certified in sustainability by Cambridge University, and I have a master in geophysics from the Colorado School of Mines. If I were to tell you what I am doing right now, I would say that I am proud to advance sustainability in geosciences. I am the first author of the Atlas of Sustainability for Geophysics, and we are now leading the creation of a new atlas for all geosciences. I am a member of the SCG board and have served SCG as vice president and at the board of directors. I am an honorary member of SPE, and I have written 3 books, and very glad to be a knight of the Republic of Italy. Here I am. Now I have the pleasure to introduce our awesome panelist, Nikki Martin. And Nikki is president of the recently rebranded Energio Alliance. As president, she is responsible for the Energio Alliance global organization and execution of its mission and priorities to optimize the business and regulatory climate and enhance the public understanding to support a strong, viable, and vibrant experience of engaging government regulators globally. Nikki is an attorney and government affairs professional. She has years of experience, and she joined the Energio Alliance in 2013 as vice president for government and legal affairs. And she evolved in different roles until she's now the top leader of that organization. Before joining the Energio Alliance, she also worked as regulatory and legal affairs manager in the Alaska Oil and Gas Association and practiced law in Anchorage. How cool is that? Nikki's prior legislative experience includes serving as staff for the US Senate, President pro tempore of Ted Stevens, and as legislative aide to the Alaska State Senate, President and Alaska State House Majority Leader. Welcome, Nikki. She currently sits at the board of directors for Western Resources Legal Center and is a member of the Alaska Bar Association. And I will now take the opportunity to introduce to you our fantastic Ulrike Schoppe. And Ulrike is a person that joined IPICA in December of 2019 as the second B from ExxonMobil. She has over 16 years of experience working in various roles within the ExxonMobil organization, with a career that spans communications, public and government affairs, and yes, you guessed it, sustainability. For the last 2 years, Ulrike has been heavily involved in IPICA's program areas for the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, also for climate and energy, reporting, social responsibility, and human rights. As a senior project manager, Ulrike has an educational background in economics, and she is currently the chief of staff of IPICA. I would like now to pass it to Elaine to continue our panel. Elaine?
Thank you, Mariangela. And I forgot to mute myself. So before we start, I would like to tell the participants, to let the participants know that we will be taking your questions in the Q&A tab. So if you have questions, please type them in as we start our discussions, and we will be more than happy to add them to our, ask them to our panelists in here today. So at this point, I think with this lovely introduction, I think we're good to start. And I would like to start with Johanna. So Johanna, I see you started your career with risk management at Schlumberger. And can you tell us when in your career and how did you get involved in sustainability and why? What triggered your interest in sustainability? And then a second part of this question is, I would like to understand a little bit more about Gaia. How did Gaia came about? And what do you do for sustainability at IOGP?
Okay, thank you, Elaine. And it's lovely to be on this panel with you all, and particularly with you, Elaine, because my first step into the oil and gas industry was actually in seismic, but I was sitting in head office, and I traveled a lot out onto the crews, either the boats or out to the land seismic crew or the transition zone crews, and there were very few women, and when there were, I just had huge admiration for you all, because you were really, groundbreaking and pioneers. And living in really difficult conditions. So hats off to you for everything you've done in seismic. And actually seismic in a way was the segment that, made me fall in love with the oil and gas industry. As you know yourself, it's a very special segment. It's the very first, it's the beginning of the value chain, so to speak. And I think in terms of your question, I thought we did have some preparation and I did think about it. And, when you reach my age, you're kind of nearing the end of your career, you kind of look back and you sense make things that didn't necessarily make sense at the time, or you made decisions. And, I realized my own upbringing already actually was quite an influence on me, my parents and my family. There was a really strong sense of kind of social justice and taking the outside into account. And I think for me, that's what sustainability is really about. It's about inclusiveness. It's about thinking about our impacts on nature and our impacts on other people, and understanding the aggregated impact. So that was probably the first kind of step. And then joining the oil and gas industry, I think really opened my eyes. It was, I was working as a risk manager in a big industrial insurance company. We had very exciting risks, to take care of, but, oil and gas was this whole other, world. And I was lucky I was in a headquarters role. So I was traveling, a lot, and I was in a service company where you get to work with all of the operators. And so you get to see this entire perspective on the industry. And that was really eye-opening for me. I really do think seismic actually had an impact on me because, already at that time, there was actually quite a lot of consciousness about impacts. And then after 5 years, so in 1998 and 97, I really had a major turning point. So I was in my kind of early 30s, I think at that point, late 20s. And I think like a lot of people, you start to think about, well, am I on the right career? Am I on the right track? Making sense, etc. And I decided I really needed to I decided I needed to resign. And I was extremely fortunate. I had a wonderful boss who I explained my ideas to. And I said, look, I think, business has this amazing connection with socioeconomic development. And I want to go out and just explore this. So I went and did a year of humanitarian aid on the grounds in post-Soviet Armenia. And my boss supported me, and I basically embedded. And that's where I formed, you know, really my very strong conviction about the role of business in society. And I also, at that point, I expected to decide, will I come back into business, into Schlumberger, or will I actually go and work in the humanitarian or in the aid sector? And I decided I really wanted to come back to Schlumberger because I thought Schlumberger and the oil and gas industry had this amazing profile in terms of impact on society. And I wanted to start working on it. And my boss at the time was Andrew Gould, who subsequently became the CEO. And he authorized me to start kind of poking around. And voila, so that started me on the journey. And I spent the next 20 years, you know, working on these topics and you know, working with people like Ulrike's predecessors in IPICA and these great organizations. So, you know, I've been very fortunate because I think I was enabled to be a pioneer by an organization that itself has always been very, you know, pioneering. And from the very beginning, there was huge support from any of the employees that I engaged with. So that actually took me then on this journey. Kamel Ben Assour, who at the time was a colleague, we sat on the same corridor in Schlumberger headquarters, and he said to me, you know, it'd be great if you joined the SPE. You know, they're doing interesting things in this space, or starting to. And so I did. I joined the SPE, and that started me on a journey which led me to eventually be nominated to the board, which I have to say was just an amazing highlight of my career. And become HSE technical director. And I added sustainability. I proposed a motion to the board and that was accepted. Several of the SPE presidents, you know, Kate Baker, Lynn Arscott, Biruz Fatahi, Kamel Ben Assour, and others had started and were really starting to beat the sustainability drum. So again, there was a lot of support. But with Gaia, I had this, again, a little bit of a light bulb moment, you know, when you arrive on the board and suddenly you see the entire expanse of the SPE, just like SCG, you know, AAPG, the other organizations, you realize you've got all these amazing individuals. And at that point, I was very frustrated by the slowness with which organizations were adopting sustainability practices and the kind of barriers that they were accepting, but at the same time, we're also finding difficult to overcome. And I thought, you know, in a technical society, we've got so much freedom to have the right conversations. And I proposed, you know, with colleagues from the discipline, other volunteers, that we create this Gaia program. And it's really focused on operationalizing sustainability and enabling scientists and engineers in the oil and gas industry to accelerate the adoption and turn the focus onto performance and you know, not so much on disclosure, but more on performance. So voila, and it's growing. And next week we have the Oman Gaia Summit, where we have over 100 operations and people, decision makers, and young talent coming from the Middle East for our second Gaia Summit. And we've got lots of programming, you know, it's fully embedded in the SPE programming around the world. So it's probably a longer answer than you wanted.
No, we like those kind of answers. And because this is also a webinar that wants to highlight the collaboration needed to advance sustainability. And I think the Gaia is a fantastic example of that. SCG is part of Gaia. And in many ways, we are so glad that you are with us to explain a little bit more about how did you become engaged in that. We are, you know, investigating these kind of stories that each one of you brings to us as an inspirational story. And I see that you had enablers and also kind of sponsors in your career that also provided that kind of platform. And that makes me reflect that Ulrike is seconded by ExxonMobil to IPICA. So that is a wonderful sponsoring opportunity as well for advancing a career in sustainability. But what is IPICA, Ulrike? Can you tell us in your own words, what is that you do and IPICA does for sustainability?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. And thanks for the invitation. And it's really a privilege to be here on this panel with all these successful and inspiring women in this space. So I'm really feeling honored today. And it's funny now, as Joanna said, where she was coming from, I reflected a bit on myself, and I'm always looking back. We heard it. I already have some experience in the oil and gas industry, but then you look back and think, like, when did it start that I was looking into sustainability? Did it only start with being seconded to IPECA, focusing on sustainability, or did it start earlier? And I mean, in our industry, every job is somehow connected to sustainability topics. You have to take care of your colleagues, you have to take care of the environment, of the communities you're operating in. So you kind of have it in your DNA without even being aware of it. Sometimes when I talk to younger colleagues or students who are really excited about all sustainability topics, and they're like, oh, maybe I need a career change. You don't need to change your career. You can just do it where you are. So yeah, so that's really interesting. And just a comment to make on being sponsored to do that. I was even sponsored to speak up and be encouraged in the organization I was working before. So that's how it all started. But yeah, coming to IPECA, not everyone might be aware of what we are doing, so I'm giving a bit of a run through, and I'm sure later on there will be some topics where we can do a deeper dive on. So IPECA was formed in 1974, and that was following the launch of the UN Environment Programme. We are kind of the key interface between the oil and gas industry and the United Nations. That's why they have asked to form us to have one channel of communication. And the initial focus was just environmental and climate issues. And that has developed over the last 45 or so years. So now we are also bringing the industry together on social performance and the whole topic of mainstreaming sustainability. We are the only association, or the only global association, covering upstream and downstream industry, and we are providing support and guidance documents across the whole project life cycle and the industry value chain. Also, in terms of diversity, we have a very diverse membership. So we have members operating in 180 countries around the world. And when looking through our member companies, but also member associations, we are able, through our network, to reach over 1 million people. So you can imagine how diverse that is, and what it makes for an association like us to have this pool of knowledge and different ideas, different backgrounds, and all these things to help us to advance the sustainability agenda. Just recently, last year, we have launched our new strategy, which also includes a new vision. Every 4 years, we do a strategic project, looking, are we still going in the right direction, or do we need to change something on the way? And we have actually changed our vision. So our vision was, as said, to advance the environmental and social performance for the oil and gas industry. But now we are also, with the new vision, we include the energy transition. We are acknowledging that our industry has a role to play across the whole energy transition, not only as an industry being a customer of the renewable energy business by buying energy, but also by diversifying themselves and changing their portfolios more into an energy transition related business, being it investing into renewable energy, or investing into low carbon technology like CCUS or hydrogen. So there's a lot of change going on in the industry, and it's great to see that this has also been reflected in what we are doing as IPECA.
Ulrika, what is your favorite SDG? Your Sustainable Development Goal. Which one is your favorite?
So as an oil and gas person, I have to admit SDG access to energy. SDG 7 is my
Yes.
favorite one. So
very good.
But in these times, obviously, there are other SDGs coming in mind where we have to get better as a global society. But yeah, this
Yes.
will always be my favorite SDG. I can't help myself.
It's okay, because I wanted to now bounce back to Elaine. She works in Fairfield Industries, and for her to make the next question, but what is your favorite SDG, Elaine?
I think it's difficult to pick one, right? But the diversity one, I think, to me is it speaks really high to my heart. So as Eureka mentioned, I think about, if you look into the panel in here, everybody kind of started in the oil, what we used to call oil and gas industry, right? And Eureka touched on a point that it's very important about the energy transition. And that brings me to Nikki. Nikki is representing Energy Alliance. And I'm very familiar with Energy Alliance myself, as I'm also part of I'm a member of the Energy Alliance. I'm vice chair for the Americas Committee in there. But I would like Nikki to expand on what is Energy Alliance, right? And how is Energy Alliance, can you give us some examples of projects and activities that Energy Alliance is involved? And to exemplify, how are they involved not only with the energy transition, but also with sustainability, and how is your role within Energy Alliance in advancing sustainability worldwide?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Elaine, and thank you all for the invitation to the panel. It's a pleasure to be here today. So the Energy Alliance was formerly the IAGC, and it was formed 51 years ago. And in our 51st year, after celebrating 50 together, we changed our name to the Energy Alliance, which really came from a vision of unifying the energy and geoscience industries together as they play key roles in directing the future of energy solutions. Our alliance is comprised of member companies from over 50 countries, and together as a cohesive alliance, we are comprised of all corners of these industries. And we are really set on leading kind of the march forward for our membership on bringing new energy sources to the world, including those mainstay sources like petroleum and natural gas, as well as alternative energy like wind and geothermal, and then low carbon solutions like carbon capture and storage. And these are increasingly becoming more important as the world demands them. And energia is also a Greek word. Interestingly, we kind of fell into that, but we liked the meaning of it. That means to put forth power to be operative at work, which captures the spirit of our organization allied together for a common cause. Oh, thank you, Maria. She's sharing our website, like that free promotion. The energy geoscience industry really sits at the intersection of where earth science and energy meet. And we really enjoy telling that narrative under this new name. Virtually all energy solutions start with our industry. The energy starts here, which is our motto. Today, and this gets to Maria's question, I'm going to preempt you on what's my favorite SDG, but today, almost 800 million people around the world are still without access to electricity, and more than 2.6 billion still do not have access to clean cooking, which brings us to SDGs number 1, no poverty, and number 3, good health and well-being. And those are directly relevant to that, both reducing the health risks from using damaging cooking fuels like burning wood or dung, which is still happening in large parts of the world, and also connecting people to energy, which statistics show time and time again helps connect them to education, connects them to workforce, connects them to industry, and lifts them from poverty, which is still very important and the number 1 goal, I think, listed for a reason. By 2050, the world population is set to increase to 9.7 billion, and energy use is expected to continue to increase by 50%. As the world's population grows and developing nations seek to improve quality of life and eliminate energy poverty, the demand for energy is increasing. And we're seeing right now that suddenly society knows a lot more clearer where energy comes from and why it's so important. You mentioned the energy transition. We like to call it at Energio the energy evolution. As a global organization representing a global industry, we understand and appreciate the needs of one country are different from the needs of the other. Where we are positioned as a developed nation, developed country in the United States or in Norway or in France or the UK is a lot different than the population in India or in South Africa. And it's really important to make sure that we're understanding that, and that's part of the conversation as we talk about the energy evolution. And so our main goal, and really we believe our membership's main goal, is to partner with countries and regions where they are to help bring them up the scale, wherever they are on the energy evolution scale, to the next step, whether that's transitioning from coal to natural gas, or whether that's diversifying with additional alternative sources like wind and geothermal. We want to be able to partner with those countries to help them make that step and understand the regulatory and policy frameworks that are required to attract and maintain the investment of the energy geoscience industry. And there's a couple of sustainability initiatives that we are also working on. So as our members continue to pursue new and innovative ways to connect the world to energy and exploration and to advance increased production and development, whether that's again from those mainstay sources of petroleum and natural gas or alternative energy sources. And our members, of course, the energy geoscience industry is going to play such a pivotal role in the monitoring and storage of carbon capture and storage as those projects continue to develop. But we want to be in a place where we're ensuring we're informing governments of what's required to make that happen in a sustainable way. But we're also providing best practice measures for environmental management, from the initial environmental impact assessment to detailed management of land and marine operations. One of the core milestones of our strategic plan in its first year a couple of years ago was development and publication of environmental impact assessment handbook. This is a very lengthy document specific to energy geoscience activities that provides comprehensive, best available science. It's updated annually of what the impacts are, the potential impacts are from our activities on the environment, and also provides best practice and guidance on interacting with stakeholders and informing the public and concerned citizens about your activities. And so that's something we're really proud of and helps to advance sustainability in those communities. And also includes measures on waste management, management of base camps and line clearing. We talked about, Joanna talked about that when she started, about seismic and how impressive it is that these industries have really been concerned about that from the start. Of course, marine mammals and underwater sound, together with IOGP, we work on the Sound and Marine Life Initiative, and we continue to advance guidance to ensure that we're removing waste from the water. We are collecting fishing gear around the world as our members.
That is my favorite project of the Ghost project, right?
Yeah. Ghost Net Initiative. Yep, that's right. And we can talk about more about that later, but that's just a taste.
So you mentioned IOGP, and I think that Joanna, you told us about a fantastic story about Gaia, but you didn't tell us about IOGP. You have to change your hats. Why don't you give us a brief, take on IOGP, please?
Yeah, sure. I think making me realize I wear too many hats. So actually, and Nikki, that was a lovely segue actually, because obviously one of the great programs in the IOGP that's related to sustainability is the Sound and Marine Life Joint Program, I think the IOGP actually has, which is its foundational reputation is around safety, but it's got a huge amount of activity, which is related to both sustainability and to the energy transition, and quite often jointly with IPCA, task forces and work groups. And, the two associations are very committed, I think, to, not overlapping or duplicating, or when there is overlap, to view it as a synergy and to work together. And I think that's really important. And earlier, Maria, you made the point about collaboration. And I think, given the scale and the urgency of the challenges to humanity, frankly, to human civilization, we have to you know, drop some of our competitive behaviors and learn to collaborate a lot better. And I think, you know, the IOGP is brilliant at doing that. There are 80 companies are members, and it's designed with all these expert groups, you know, that bring the companies together to be able to, you know, collaborate as companies, which is different from the professional associations where we collaborate as individuals. And of course, last year, the IOGP, when Iman Hill became the director on the 1st of December, so just over a year ago, and you know, galvanized everybody around the creation of a new strategy. And of course, the centerpiece of that strategy is the energy transition. And we now have an energy transition directorate and very ambitious program of deliverables led by Concetto Fischetti, who's seconded by ENI, and a really great team of people. And then an environment directorate as well, which is extremely active, led by Harvey Johnson. And so, you know, I think it's sustainability in a way is a red thread now across, you know, all of the activity. But particularly, actually another one, particularly I was going to say environment and energy transition, but the one that's been a real revelation to me is the engineering, you know, directorate, and the JIP 33, as it's called, is a flagship joint industry, you know, program. And, you know, that's an efficiency route to reduction of waste, which obviously is, you know, imperative to sustainability. And, you know, I'd probably, the director of the engineering directorate would probably kill me, but I would say, you know, we're not too far, not too many steps removed from starting to look at circularity.
Yes.
You know, within that, you know, directorate.
Thank you, Johanna.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you.
I think that was very much needed, so that we now have a vision about this Energy Alliance and the IOGP. And there is a question for Nikki already from the audience, and that question is, you mentioned there is an environmental impact assessment document. Can you tell us exactly what is the title and where they can find it?
Yeah, so this is a member-only resource. So if you're a member of the Energy Alliance, you can access this under our member resources page, and it's called Environmental Impact Assessment Handbook. There might be a fancy subtitle beyond that I cannot recall right now, but it's available to our membership. So feel free to reach out to anyone on our staff, and they'll connect you with that.
Can an individual be a member of Energy Alliance?
So all individuals of company membership are considered members of the Energeo Alliance. So Elaine, with her hat, working for Fairfield Geotechnologies, has access to all the membership materials. And then individual consultants can also be members.
So you heard us talking about why I am sharing the websites of the different organizations is because there are plenty of resources available in sustainability. And we were asking what is the favorite SDGs of our panelists. And at this point, I would like also to share a little bit about the resources that are available in the United Nations page. And Nikki said her favorite SDG was #1, and #1 is probably the most noble of all Sustainable Development Goals, SDG, which is no poverty. No poverty has 7 targets, and there are, all the information is here available. And for the 17 SDGs, there is information about what's going on and what do they entail. And my favorite SDG is here, you will see it, 13, climate action. That is close to my heart. And also the other top one for me is, of course, SDG 7. So I coincide with Ulrika. SDG 7 is my favorite SDG. And Elaine said her favorite SDG is #5. Yes, she's the chair of the SDG Women's Network Committee, and SDG #5 is gender equality. So what is your SDG, favorite SDG? Perhaps you may want to tell us something about that. And since we are here, I would like now to also provide Ulrike and our audience a chance to see what are the resources available in IPIECA website, because IPIECA website does have a variety of resources and reports, etc., that are fully available and for free in their website that I think is worth mentioning. But who best to talk about that? Not me, but Ulrika. Ulrika, please.
Yeah, sure, definitely. I think you have already mentioned the most important thing, that our documents are for free on our website. So you don't even have to be a member to access them. And this is born out of the idea to have the vision of improving the whole industry's performance. So not only our member companies, but even broader. And that's also why we're having half of our membership are not company members, but association members. And they are just great channels for us to get out in the regions, to making sure that our good practice documents are not staying somewhere in the headquarters, but really getting them out where the workforce is acting with communities, where they have direct environmental impacts and so on. So this is really why we're doing that. And you find it along our 4 pillars we're working on, so climate, nature, people, and sustainability. And there's one, I think the best document we have, which is the guide to IPCA resources, which is a 2 or 3 pager, which shows you all the documents we have. So it makes it easier to have an overview of what's offered, and then you can just click yourself through it and download the documents you're interested in. But as Maria is showing here, our resources page can take a chance to highlight one of them. One of the documents I've been mostly involved with, and I'm really proud that we have it, is our SDG roadmap. You see here on the right side of the screen. So after we did the exercise a few years ago of mapping all the 17 SDGs to the oil and gas sector, we now last year have brought out this document where we give a concrete action plan for the industry to look how they can support governments in reaching the SDGs.
Thank you, dear Ulrika. And with that, we have other questions in the Q&A. Elaine?
Yes, we have some very good questions here in the Q&A. So I will take the first one, not take the first one, I'll read the first one. It's gonna be for Nikki. Nikki, there is a large negative public opinion on the energy industry and a lot of misinformation regarding it. How can energy professionals help change the narrative around this, as well as communicate this to younger generations regarding the positive impacts that we are contributing to globally?
Yeah, that's a great question. I saw that come up and I was hoping you would ask it of me. This has been a really challenging topic for the industry. We haven't been the best communicators about the value of the energy industry and its positive impact on the environment, its positive impact in contributing to these UN Sustainability Development Goals. So one is empowering and educating the energy workforce to ensure they have the facts at hand and the knowledge to converse and introduce some kind of realism into these conversations. But these can be very polarizing topics. I had a friend from college reach out this morning and ask for some advice on, hey, my parents saw this on the news and they're saying that we have enough oil that we never need to drill again, even with the current crisis happening. Is that true? What do I say? Like, that could be true if, you know, the alternative energies that we're pursuing, including a lot of our membership, ramp up. That doesn't mean it will happen, but that could be a true statement. And really introducing realism into the conversation instead of reacting and being defensive. And I would say that some of the greenest people I've met work in what was traditionally called the oil and gas industry. I just want to give a quick personal example here. I went to law school at the #1 environmental law school in the US, which is Lewis and Clark Law School. And people go there to really go out to work for NGOs, work for Earth Justice, NRDC, Greenpeace, and advocate traditionally against our industry to support kind of their climate change agenda. And I wanted to learn their perspective and from the best. And I really found that the way to really affect change is not to just go into those NGOs and cause, headaches and hurdles. And some of them are really great in adding to the conversation of sustainability and really do want to work and collaborate as well. But to work in the industry, work in the companies and make a change internally. And that's even more true now. And I think the message I would have to people considering their career path, whether they want to be a geoscientist or an engineer or an environmental professional, is we've seen a great change in our industry, and it is started at the top. Leadership is calling for greater sustainability measures and greater challenges from within their organization to be held accountable to very high environmental standards. This is a great time to go work for the industry, be involved, and make a change internally.
Thank you, Nikki. Johanna, anything you'd like to add to that point? You're muted.
I'm sorry. I think it's a really good point, and I think it's really important. And it's hard to find the right place for, the industry to be able to talk about its beneficial, footprint, because, we're not really in a safe space. And we're challenged all the time, right? So everything we say is kind of fake news. And so, it's very difficult to have those conversations. Of course, there are great people out there, who are acting as voices from that point of view. As a sustainability practitioner, my feeling is now is not really the time to be talking about our beneficial impacts. They kind of speak for themselves. I think, we're reading in the news, we all understand, every day how dependent we are on oil and gas. Having oil and gas turn around and say, aren't we wonderful and don't forget that, is really, it's not the time to do that. I think we will be listened to in relation to our beneficial footprint when we show that we really understand that the planet is reaching the limits of its carrying capacity. That's not because of us, it's because of humanity. It's because of our, civilization project. It's because of how many people we are. It's about how we're trading. It's about how we're consuming, etc. And oil and gas is a big part of that. It drives me crazy when oil and gas is blamed, when in fact, it's all of us. It's humanity. And oil and gas has had hugely beneficial impacts. I feel has been rather unfairly blamed. At the same time, we haven't done a lot to help ourselves, I think, a lot of the time. And I think we, in Gaia, we have a slogan. We say, we need to think like activists and act like engineers.
That is a very good saying, Johanna. If I may add to your vision, I think that perhaps to respond to Cara, we have not provided also tools for the narrative. Maybe
Yes.
we need to provide more tools to our members in every society and with what we do. And in regards to that, and building on Ulrika's comment on the chat, I would like to share now that I have shared your website. So let me share something that I think is very pertinent today to this webinar, which is what is the SEG doing in terms of sustainability, and how do we help changing the narrative of who we are and what is our value proposition, specifically in geophysics. I am certain that Elaine and I are very glad to share with you that as of January 2021, we published an article about how geophysics sustains each one of the SDGs. And what we did, following models already explored by the Mining Association and the IPCA organization, right? We mapped every, all the geophysical tools and techniques as a discipline to each one of the Sustainable Development Goals. So the 17 Sustainable Development Goals were considered, and we map what we do in geophysics to each one of them. So we are talking about decent work. Okay, what can we do? We are talking about the favorite SDG of Johanna, which is SDG number 9. As I know, industry, innovation, and infrastructure, right, Johanna?
Yes.
We have there, what are the enablers? What are the opportunities? So this is a step forward to change the narrative and to highlight what is what we do. We don't necessarily are just experts, for example, in AVO, but something more than that. We help with advancing, for example, life below water. And what I am showing here is part of the, we took the GHOST program that Energio Alliance is advancing as an example in the Atlas. So we are very proud of this. I want to highlight, you can find this just searching in Google by Geophysical Sustainability Atlas, and it is free, it's open access, anyone can download it. So we also had to have our 5 minutes of advertising here for SCG and what is that we have done. I also want to acknowledge my two co-authors. I am the first author of the Atlas, but I did this with many focus groups. Some of you were part of those focus groups. I think the 3 of you were part of those focus groups, right? And also the 2 co-authors that Anna Shognessy, who is current president of SCG, and Emer Castling, who is now a sustainability practitioner at ICRAC in Ireland. So I wanted to share that. But there are many more questions, and Elaine, if you want to.
Yes, there are many more questions here on the chat, which is awesome, right? We want to have more and more. It's not every day that we have the opportunity to talk to people like this. So there's one question in here which was answered on the text, but I think it's something that it's good to share with everybody else. And the question was, how do you encourage global participation to the energy sciences? Specifically, how do we stem the experience declining in students and professionals in our field of expertise? So I think both Nikki and Johanna kind of started touching upon it. I would like to hear a little bit more from Eureka as well, on your opinion on that.
Yeah, I think it goes a bit in the similar direction in terms of how we represent our industry. If everyone hides that we are working for the energy industry and we are not proud that we are working in this space, how can you find new people joining our group? I think we need the messages. We need the messages like Maria Angela just showed, that geophysicists can contribute to all the 17 SDGs. We did the same task for the oil and gas industry. And I think people need to see that they can do good in our industry. They always see the headlines being blamed for whatever, but we have good people. We have good people who believe in a good thing. And that's coming back to my favorite SDG with SDG 7. I think the message here is really we can, as the SDGs are so interconnected with each other, we can have a big influence by providing energy to the people to fight poverty, to improve their health, even to do something about diversity. So it's really, with energy, you can do so much good on this world. And I think the numbers Nikki has shared earlier with how many people still lack access to electricity and what that does for a living. I think these are the messages we have to bring across, and it is a global issue. So we are not only like providing energy for the people living in the middle of London, using the tube and thinking about energy efficiency, but we are providing energy around the world. And I think that's a big message to make. So it's not only about talking about luxury problems. Am I going to drive my Tesla or am I driving my diesel car? It's much more substantial questions when talking about access to energy.
Talking about diesel and different kind of cars, there is a question that relates to the WTI price. You know that the WTI price as of today is over $120, right? So there is a question about that. And the question says that the current energy demand and supply situation due to the pandemic, but also now with an added ingredient of the sad war, is that the world amounts, among the US and exploration and production companies is to increase production as fast as possible. So how do these companies can ensure to achieve the sustainability goals that they have set up for themselves? Net zero, et cetera, if now all the attention is shifting so rapidly, is that following a strategy? I would add to the question. The question was raised by Eli Ardikani, and you may take it as you wish, or who wants to speak and reply to that? Johanna?
I'll kick off. I think we're completely underestimating the depth of transformation that's required to meet net zero or to achieve a diversified energy proposal to meet all of humanity's needs. We always 1 billion people don't have access to any kind of energy at the moment, so it's not like there's any shortage of demand. But I think we're totally underestimating the kind of resourcing. I mean, we have hugely ramped up. It's not bolt on anymore. It's not just the internal tree huggers and very few resources running around with their begging bowl. We definitely see an awful lot more operations engagement, but I don't think it's nearly enough, and it's certainly not enough to be able to survive the kind of peaks and spikes of very turbulent macro situations, which definitely can knock us off course, which is exactly what's happening right now.
Thank you, Johanna.
It's the equivalent of the Industrial Revolution. I mean, this is, yes. Either you really are convinced, that the aggregated impact of humanity is really, causing the sixth great extinction, and we really need to get serious.
Is the fourth industrial revolution, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And I don't think, we're set up. I think there are a lot of great intentions and a lot of great efforts, but I don't think they're anywhere near the scale that's really needed. And that's very hard to achieve.
Let me ask Nikki how she envisioned the trend in her network of companies and members in Energio Alliance about this rapid shift in the price of oil.
Yeah, so I saw that question, and I think that certainly the members of our organizations, the members of IOGP, IPICA, Energio, have a commitment and an adherence to sustainability initiatives that they have frankly created themselves and are supporting. And I don't think they will abandon those for the sake of quickly producing. I think that our industry is tremendously innovative and has the ability to quickly produce while also continuing to meet their sustainability goals. And one of the initiatives that Energio Alliance is advancing right now is emissions guidance, both for scope 1 and 2, as well as scope 3 for our offshore geophysical and energy geoscience survey operations. And we're going to do that as soon as these are finalized in the next month, transition to onshore. This work continues to go on, even though that there continue to be increasing demand for energy, and I don't see that changing. And so I think our industry, the answer to the question is the industry is set up well because there has been such a focus on this already, and just because energy is suddenly in a higher demand, or it's perceived to be in a higher demand. I think it's always in demand, but it's perceived to be in a higher demand, and we are having to consider ramping up production in some areas to replace oil and gas that are coming offline in other areas, doesn't mean that these companies are going to abandon their goals and their commitments to the environment.
Well, I really loved your answer. And as we are having our mini Sera week here with your three panelists and your huge experience and insights, I will take the opportunity that Ulrike is seconded by ExxonMobil to IPECA, and I will tell you why. Nikki just mentioned scope 3 and how easy it is for every individual and all of us perhaps to blame the big corporations about their emissions, right? Scope 1 and their value chain, scope 2, right? So it's easy to say, no, the Shells and Totals and ExxonMobils of the world, they are polluting. Wait a second, where is scope 3? So our individual take on this matter, our decisions, our contributions. So I have a question for Ulrike. From the point of view of IPECA, Ulrike, how do you envision there is a common knowledge, and what are the efforts that our industry in energy is doing so that the common individual in the street is aware of scope 3 purposes?
It's a very good question. And I like the framing of saying it's not only the responsibility of the oil and gas industry, but it's a customer responsibility at the end. We're always talking about scope 3 emissions, and we are envisioning something that is just related to some big companies who don't want to have targets on it, who don't want to report on it or whatsoever. But at the end, we are the ones burning the fuel, fueling our cars, having our homes warm and all these things, and using the products from industry who are relying on this form of energy. I think we are seeing big developments in this space, not only related to scope 3, but the whole, I would say, climate-related action by the industry. 2.5 years ago, I think in 2019, at the COP25 in Madrid, we had one member of IPECA having publicly said their net zero emissions target. And now, 2.5 years later, we have, I think, 28 companies. So more than half of our membership have concrete actions in place and have publicly committed to reach net zero emissions. And for 8 of these companies, this even includes scope 3 emissions. So I think there's a lot going on. The focus is there. The companies see that they have to do something, and that the society, investors, and so on are expecting to see actions around it. But especially in scope 3, you have to see how you can reach that. I mean, there are also different challenges for different companies. If you have like a national oil company whose purpose is to bring the energy to their country, they can't just say, well, I'm going to avoid producing any oil anymore from that point of time on. So it has to be a journey, and it has to be very well developed for every individual positions where companies are, the regions are where they are operating, and so on to get there. And also there will be more and more a look at the so-called responsible exit. So to not just leave any production behind and say, okay, with that, I can then reach my scope 3 targets, but really making sure this is a very strategic way and not a short-term decision. So also to reflect on the question before, you always have changing oil prices. So this will not change everything in terms of targets being set for 2050. So I would say it's a long-term thing, but you see great developments in the space, and the companies are on it.
Wow, Ulrika, you know that kind of insight, which is strategic and high level, and with the leadership, of course, comes from your role in IPECA. But you know that sometimes we need to land these ideas to the individuals because yes, the price now is high, but many of the professionals and practitioners in our profession have had to shift gears and gain new skills and perhaps incursion in other realms, in other careers, in other segments. I would like to ask perhaps Joanna and Nikki. Let's start with Nikki. How do you envision the shift of skills and the pivoting of our professionals in this energy transition, Nikki?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we actually just had a panel on this at our annual meeting, which is proud. I asked our governing member companies to nominate a couple rising star geoscientists within their companies to talk about why they're still in our industry. First of all, with all the negative pressures on it, there's always concern about recruitment and retention. But here we had two individuals that's proud that they were both female. Just happened to be two female geoscientists who are 10 years into their careers, dedicated at these two individual companies, and are excited about their contribution to the energy industry and their roles at these energy geoscience companies. One who's still in a traditional role supporting oil and gas exploration, and another who is supporting carbon capture and storage. And what really came through of that is that their companies, and I think this is true of the industry at large, is really providing the line of sight to them within their companies of how they can apply their skill set and their knowledge to support these new energy and low carbon solution businesses as they're building them, and to really be on the groundbreaking part of that. And so I think that's exciting for these individuals. And I think the way we can, there was a question earlier, how do we recruit people to continue to come into the energy geoscience industry? It's through providing that line of sight and showing that this isn't an industry that just supports what we know as the mainstay sources of energy. It is supporting virtually all sources of energy, and the knowledge of this industry is going to be required and will likely be the one providing the unicorn solution that accelerates really a transformation in technology that helps us look at the energy mix differently than what it is today.
All right. I like that point of view. Sometimes, you know, Nikki, I think that we are an extractive industry, and very soon we are going to be an injecting industry. So reversing the flow from coming out.
Something's coming out or going in.
Going in. So let me hear about Johanna. How do you envision this kind of skills shift and energy transition in our members? And I am asking you because now that the professional societies that were used to be envisioned as oil and gas, now please put on your hat of SPE. You have been on the board. You are SPE founder and engine behind Gaia. How do you envision the professional society's role also in this energy transition to support the skills in the individuals?
Well, first, I think we need oil and gas skills, all of the traditional skills, because oil and gas needs to be part of the energy mix for a very long time. Second, with Gaia, our other tagline is enabling the scientists and engineers of oil and gas, to acquire these skills, to allow them to accelerate their uptake of sustainability practices and true sustainability practices. So bringing humanity back inside planetary boundaries. I think there's a huge amount of learning that can happen. I think we all spend a lot of time learning all these new skills. I think organizations like IPICA, like IOGP, API, ARPEL, our own professional societies, we're producing an incredible amount of knowledge for our colleagues. And so I would urge individuals to kind of self-educate and take advantage of all of these amazing materials, which are a very high standard, which by and large have been created by other colleagues in the industry, and to consider how they can evolve their skills so that they can stay relevant to helping oil and gas transition. And I think we'll see oil and gas venturing into other you know, forms of energy. I mean, for me, you know, I see oil and gas as the linchpin, you know, integrating a very diverse energy system. And so I think in the oil and gas industry, we'll also have, you know, a whole range of skills, and there'll be a lot of options available. I think also, you know, with the skills that anybody in oil and gas has, they're highly transferable skills. So if they feel they can't stay in the industry, you know, for whatever reason, you know, I'm sure they have skills that can be welcomed in other sectors, but I would really encourage people to stay in oil and gas and be the change. You know?
So if I take what you just commented, and as an SPE member myself, it looks like the SPE member will be like the Society of Planet Engineers, so that we will address so many elements in that.
I hope you made that suggestion in the process, Maria. It's still going on. I think they're still taking suggestions for
yes
renaming.
So
I'm very much against taking petroleum out of the name, I have to say. I'm like,
yes.
Own it. We're in the petroleum industry, you know, own it.
Yes.
And change, decarbonize, get with the program. Sorry.
Good.
Petroleum at the center.
I like this kind of debates, because in a way it makes us think and rethink what is that we are doing. And I am convinced that collaboration is the way forward. And even if we maintain our own branding or identity, or we own, as Johanna says very well, that we grew in the petroleum industry, for me it's delightful to see the three of you and Elaine, of course, leading your respective organizations and initiatives. And I will take the opportunity to share some information about the Women Network of SEG, because it's not coincident that the five of us here in the panel today, we are women. Let's remember, we are celebrating the month of International Women's Day, that is March 8th. And the best way to show what we do is not to address specifically diversity topics, but to show our audience successful women and inspirational women, as Ulrika, Nike, and Johanna, that are with us today, sharing their insights and their experience of these difficult topics. So if you want to be part of the Women's Network Committee, there are many resources, and you can just look for them in your favorite platform. This I am showing to you is, for example, Instagram. And you can see that we are not shying away from posting things in Spanish, in English, and also portraying the young generation of women in geophysics that are making a change and that are certainly interested in sustainability. Also, I would like to share with you that the Sustainability Committee was approved in 2021 to be launched. I am the chair of the Sustainability Committee, and we will have also our own space in the SCG, and we already have our foot in the Gaia committee, which is an overarching and collaborative initiative of all professional societies that are related to the subsurface. I would like Elaine to get to explain and to enlighten us about what is the SCGWN doing these days.
Okay, thank you, Maria, for the opportunity. So I think one way of explaining what we are doing these days, and it's very relevant and specifically take into consideration some of the discussions that we had about the future of the energy industry, of the oil and gas itself, of the geophysicists, the geoscientists. I think that's the approach that we're taking. We feel like it's very important to continue engaging with the young professional and with the students And if we want to bring people on board, if we want to increase the number of students, if we want to increase the number of younger professionals in our society, we need to have to show that there are fields over there that they can work, and we need to support each other. So one thing that it's very startling is that the fact that earlier in the career, if you look at geosciences in general, when the little kids go to school, they are all interested in all types of disciplines. As their career, as they grow old, we see the number of young girls that actually leave the STEM part of the education and go to other areas start dropping. And one of the issues in there is that in the past, they didn't see a lot of role models in there, and a lot of mentors and a lot of possibilities for them to grow in their career. So one thing that the SCG Women's Network is doing, and it's something that we are very passionate about it, is creating those opportunities to show that yes, there are plenty of role models, women role models in both in the technical space, in the leadership positions, and that we can make this work. And not only that, but also kind of creating those connections, creating the environment where we can have the students and we can have early professionals in contact with people with more experience. Also, we have expanded our network really well in the past year or so, where we are engaging very early with the universities. So we created the SC as part of the SCG student chapters. We have the SCG Women's Network inside the chapters as well, and trying to engage the students at university, because if we want to increase the pool of people, we need to engage with them earlier in their career. It's not just later. And with that, we are also creating several, and if you follow us on the social media, you're going to see that we're very visible on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and Twitter. And that's where we share all of our webinars. All of our webinars are free. We want to make it accessible to everybody. Everybody should have access to information. And we are making different types of webinars, technical webinars, soft skills webinars, and panels like this one. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. So it's kind of creating that environment to empower each other, not only for the experienced professionals, but from the early in their careers, from the students as they progress to their career. So we're basically a network of support. This is how I like seeing us.
Thank you, Elaine. I think that the best way to wrap up our webinar today, where we are bringing those role models you are talking about to our audience today in a collaboration of the Women Network Committee and the Sustainability Committee, will be to gain your insights and your own reflections about leadership. You are leaders. And I will start with you, Elaine. When did you, what triggered you into leadership and volunteering in this particular case for the Women Network Committee? Your short answer, please.
That's a very good question. So to me, that happened quite late in my career. And I felt like even at the time I was working for Schlumberger, which was still a very large organization. But I felt like I could do more. I was always involved within Schlumberger, several leadership positions, and even in the Women's Network, the Connect Women Network in there too. And I felt that I could do a little bit more. And then SCG to me I felt like the SCG Women's Network would give me that platform where I could get out of my comfort zone and just talking to my peers and actually exposing myself and being that agent for the other women, specifically in the countries the country that I come from Latin America, from Brazil, and being their voice in here. So that's where I started.
Thank you, Elaine. That is a fantastic story. And I think that, yes, you have become an enabler. Let me tell you that I felt absolutely delighted when you approached the Sustainability Committee to do a partnership for this webinar. So thank you for that. If it wasn't for you, this would have not happened. So thank you.
My pleasure.
Let me now ask Ulrika. Ulrika, what triggered in you to become a leader? And when did you discover that you actually, in fact, are a leader?
That's a big question. I mean,
yes, I
who's
like this.
calling themselves a leader in some sense? Yes, I like to share my passion for topics. I think that's what I like to do, however you call it. I like to be very open about what I believe in and talking to people, communicating. I started my career in communications, and that's what I'm doing every day. You can talk to external stakeholders, you can talk to your colleagues and so on. And when you're passionate about something, you will always find a common ground around things. And I think that's the best thing you can do. I mean, we are always talking about collaboration and all these things, but living it every day, I think that's what makes it leadership and really, it improves what we are doing and bringing our industry forward. So yeah, I leave it here, however you call it, being passionate. And I think also one very important keyword is bringing empathy. So you need to understand where's here the person you're talking to coming from, what's their background, all these things. You can't just come with a concept and tell someone this is now sustainable and you have to do it, but you have to understand and put yourself in the other one's shoes to really get it.
That those are wise words that come from actually walking the talk. And I must say that, yes, Ulrika, you are leading many initiatives in IPICA. I look up to you, and I'm very glad to meet you. So and have you in my journey. Thank you for that. Let me now bring Johanna to this rodeo that we organized. In Houston, we have the rodeo. So these are the days of cowboys and cowgirls. And I think Johanna is, yes. So
that's a great concept, Maria. You should keep that up, the sustainability rodeos, and we'll bring in all the bucking broncos of sustainability. I think it's an interesting question. I'm a little bit like Ulrika, I'm kind of slightly reluctant, to use the word, leader. At the same time, like her, I love to pursue my passions and share them. For me, it's very clear. In Schlumberger, I was a thought leader. So, I was one of the first who really started thinking about these, topics. And just because of where I happened to be located, I was in a position to, be able to scale them. And so that's one form of leadership. But in the SPE, I was able to become, a leader of people. And through a lot of my volunteering service in the SPE, it was as a thought leader, building conferences, building programming, etc. But then when I came on the board, that really came to me almost as a mission, because we had so many individuals who were members of this HSE discipline. And I could have chosen to just focus on the technical discipline and the governance of the SPE, but I felt really compelled as well, to serve the individual, members and to pull together try to pull together a strong community. So I really appreciate having had that opportunity. And I think that's a wonderful aspect of our professional societies, is people who are not necessarily leaders of people, in their own companies can become leaders of people, in the professional societies. And we see incredible acts of leadership, and particularly, servant leadership, inside the professional societies. So I'm certainly very grateful for having had those opportunities and to have been able to grow in both those styles of leadership.
Thank you, Johanna. And let me now highlight that today we have seen a characteristic that is magnificent, which is serving leadership and humbleness. I mean, that is great because, I mean, when you work with Johanna, you feel humbled that, she's an engine and she's indeed a leader and a hyper connector. So I don't have words to express my admiration. So thank you, Johanna, for being here with us. And let me now refer to another giant, and this is Nikki Martin. And I am shy of adjectives for Nikki and the big transformation that she pushed in IAGC to become NRGO. And I like that you kept the geo there. So Nikki, tell us what pushed you into leadership and when did you discover these strengths in you?
Well, I think I had really great mentors, and mentorship continues to be a very strong and foundational principle for aspiring leaders. I had great mentors in my first roles out of college, out of university, working in the Alaska legislature, which inspired me to pursue higher education at law school. And then I had great mentors coming out of law school. I think how I first discovered I could lead, which really inspired my passion to be in this field and specifically within trade association leadership, is working at the Alaska Oil and Gas Association and finding solutions amongst competing companies, often regulatory or policy solutions. They would come at issues with very different and competing perspectives, and I had to be the moderator and had to find a common ground and be creative and find a solution that people could get behind that they didn't themselves come to on their own. And so I think that was the first time I really realized, hey, I can lead. I can be the one to direct and find a solution and get a consensus of competing very powerful companies behind me to advance a goal and common objective. And so that's why I like pursuing leadership within the industry and trade organizations, and why I'm like being at the helm of one now.
Well, thank you very much. I now would like to perhaps also share with you my own vision. And I am very graphical and visual person. And I love to share, I think an image says more than 1,000 words. And I think that perhaps this shows what leadership is. Are you looking at the slide? Yes. So leadership is taking that step that everybody has thought, but maybe few have taken the courage to do. And let's all of us give back by providing opportunities to others. Express my thanks and admiration for our 3 panelists and my co-moderator. And I would like Elaine to close this panel. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. It was a real pleasure having you all in here. It's an honor and privilege to be among leaders like you. I really appreciate your time and appreciate the time of the audience as well. Happy International Women's Day, belated International Women's Day. And I hope to see you soon. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, Elaine, Maria.
Bye. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Elaine. Thank you, Nikki and Ulrika. Lovely to be with you.
Thank you all. A great panel.
That was a great discussion.
Yes, it was.
And they're great questions.